Celebrate with us, a legacy created by one couple and carried on by thousands of others. This is Pensacola Christian College. 50 years of empowering Christian leaders. Let's strive for 50 more. celebrate with us, a legacy created by one couple and carried on by thousands of others. This is Pensacola Christian College. 50 years of empowering Christian leaders. Let's strive for 50 more.
Please be seated. Today we conclude our Legacy Chapel series. In the last Legacy Chapel, we reviewed the decade of the 2000s, as well as the years in the next decade leading up to the retirement of Dr. and Mrs. Horton. This morning we will focus on the years starting in 2012 and continuing to the present. The event that kicked off this era was the inauguration of PCC's second president. We welcome those who are joining us today by means of live stream, assisting us in our chapel Our Jonathan McIntyre, a 2007 alumnus leading singing. At the organ, Jordan Nichols, a 2023 grad, and current student Bruce Bowling at the piano. As we begin, we'll be led in prayer by our student body chaplain, Michael Goodman.
Let's pray. Dear Father, thank you for this day and for all that you've done for us and for this school. Thank you for allowing us to be able to celebrate 50 years this entire year and to be able to finalize it in this last Legacy Chapel. I pray that you bless this rest of this hour. In Jesus' name, amen.
We are going to enjoy a brief video clip from a beautiful fall day on October 12th, 2012. It was on that day that Dr. Troy Shoemaker was inaugurated as the second president of Pensacola Christian College. Students, this was a momentous occasion as it marked the first and only time a president has ever been inaugurated at Pensacola Christian College. There was a buzz on the campus that morning as Krispy Kreme donuts were delivered to the residence halls as a gift from President-elect Shoemaker to show his appreciation for them. This would be the first of many ways the student experience would become a hallmark of the new administration.
Dr. Shoemaker, it is our desire as students that you continue to provide an education that challenges us to be our very best, to preserve the Christian environment that we enjoy so much, and to keep the campus vibrant and improving in its facilities and service to students. We have already grown to appreciate you, and we welcome you as the second president of PCC.
Dr. Troy Shoemaker is uniquely qualified to lead this institution, not only because of his experience and knowledge, but because of his commitment to follow God's direction in the leadership of this diverse organization. By the authority of the founders and board of directors of Pensacola Christian College, you are being presented with the symbol of your office as second president of Pensacola Christian College. This chain of office with the presidential medallion includes links engraved with the name and dates of office of PCC's first president, Dr. Arlen Horton, and now your name and starting date as second president.
Believing that God has placed me here to serve, I accept the charge to uphold and fulfill the mission and purpose of Pensacola Christian College as its second president. Students, I want you to know I'm committed to your success. God has great plans for you. You will be amazed what he can do through you. If the Lord tarries his coming, you must become the next leaders of business, healthcare organizations, Christian schools, churches, and the leaders of this college.
For those who would like to view the inauguration in its entirety, it is available at watch.pcci.edu. We are pleased to have Dr. Stephanie Rasmussen with us today for this special chapel. She serves at a great ministry, Faith Baptist School, in Canoga Park, California. She and her family are longtime friends of this ministry, and she provides exceptional leadership in her role as the chairman of the board of directors of Pensacola Christian College. We're pleased to have her as the moderator of today's Legacy Chapel. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Rasmussen. The Lord has uniquely prepared our president, Dr. Shoemaker, to lead PCC in this generation. His leadership, vision, and love for students are appreciated by all. You're going to love this morning, students, because at this time, Dr. and Mrs. Shoemaker are being escorted to their seats by 4 of their grandchildren.
That looked better in my head than it actually turned out. I was so nervous for them.
Well, I thought it was sweet to have your grandchildren walk you both to the stage this morning. Mrs. Shoemaker, why don't you take a minute to introduce us to those adorable little grandchildren?
My favorite topic, so yeah, they're lots of fun. Those 4 were Becca, Summer, Jackson, and Denver. The oldest 4, the youngest, there's 4 more of them, so 8 total, and their ages range from 6 months to 9 years old.
Well, you have a beautiful family, and I know both of you really enjoy being grandparents, as do I. So, Mrs. Shoemaker, I've had the privilege of getting to know you in a more personal way after being on the board these past 7 years. And I've got to watch you and Dr. Shoemaker interact with one another. And I just have often wondered, what was it like the very first time when Dr. Shoemaker came home and he told you that he was going to be the next president of PCC?
Yeah, so that didn't happen. He never actually told me. And that's a unique story, but we got to back up first to realize, to really understand how he learned he was going to be president. So you tell that.
Yes. I didn't tell her because the backstory is I was sitting in my office one day. I was then academic vice president. So I'm in Dr. Cochran's office, where it is now, down on the first floor. Dr. Horton is president. He comes down to my office. He never did that. He came down to my office and shut the door. And I thought, oh, what is going to happen? He says, come and sit by me on the couch here. I want to tell you something. And so Dr. Horton said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that next year, Becca and I are going to retire. And I said, oh, Dr. Horton, I'm so sorry to hear that. I've enjoyed working with you. It's just not going to be the same around here without you. And I just can't imagine. But thanks for telling me. He said, yeah, I thought you should know because you're the guy. I didn't know what the guy was. But he said, for the next year, I want you to mentor with me. I'll take you to some meetings. So he never really asked me. He just told me I was the guy. And for the next year, I followed him around. But he said, this is a personal decision for Becca and me to retire. And he said, so we don't want it to get out, so please don't tell anybody. And so I didn't tell anybody.
Not even his wife.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, we both worked with Dr. and Mrs. Horton in that time, and there were things that they would share with us and say, hey, this is not your thing to share, and we understood that. So it was theirs to let everybody know about. So I was never offended by it, but boy, was I surprised when it finally came to light.
Yeah. And I didn't want to mess it up. So
true.
Well, I am confident that Dr. Horton saw in you the qualities of a great leader. So I have to ask then, when did you know that you wanted to be the president of PCC?
Well, I never really wanted it. That sounded bad, but it's just something I never aspired to, never dreamed of. I look back now over years and see how God prepared. And that'll be your case too, by the way, students. You'll be called to something someday that is totally unexpected. And you're going to go on the adventure of a lifetime that God's going to take you on. And you're going to say, how did I ever get here? And it's because God prepared you for this. And this was us. So I was a high school physics teacher, chemistry, basketball coach at the academy. I thought I was going to do that the rest of my life. And then principal, I'll do that the rest of my life. Administrator, the same. Dean of graduate studies, I'll just do this the rest of my life. God wasn't calling us anywhere. So we thought wherever we were, that's what we would be doing. And by the way, if you don't mind a piece of advice, I think it has been a great comfort for us, because wherever we are, just be all in, be all there. There's nothing more miserable than looking over the fence, longing for something different, but to be content where you are. So no, I never dreamed of it, and it was the shock when he came in, but I feel so lucky, privileged.
Well, as I know the story, a couple of months went by before Mrs. Shoemaker finds out that her husband was chosen to be the next president. So you had 3 children in college and high school at the time. So when did the 2 of you then decide to tell your children that, hey, Dad's going to be the next president?
Yeah, when did you find out?
Right, so for me, we actually had lunch with the Hortons one day, several months later, and Dr. Horton starts talking to Troy saying, hey, next year you're going to want to think about this, and oh, you need to know this, and I walked out after lunch completely baffled, and I looked at him and I said, what is going on? And he finally told me, which was extremely helpful.
She finally knew why I hadn't been sleeping all those nights ahead of time. You know?
Made so much more sense. But then after that, I understood why he was like, okay, when the Hortons want people to know, they will share it with them. So in that timeline, the Hortons knew when they wanted to announce it publicly, when they were going to retire. And we didn't want our kids, who were just barely into college, mostly in high school age, we didn't want them to have to carry this knowledge around with them, walk on eggshells, wondering, am I going to say the wrong thing? So the night before he announced it to faculty staff, actually not the night before, the night just before, we went to dinner with our kids and told them. Actually, he told them.
Mm-hmm. And how did they respond then when they find out Dad's going to be the president of the college?
Our oldest son is a bit of a smart aleck, and so he stood up and bowed. The other 2 were still high school, so didn't have as much, invested in college yet, and their immediate questions were, do we have to move? What's going to happen to the dog? What's going to happen to the cat? They were more concerned with home.
I love it that Trey bowed. Off the record, I have asked them, so who does Trey get his smart aleck nature from? And to that, I will not give you the answer, young people. But recently, Dr. Shoemaker, there was a group of educators here on the campus, and you shared a story with us. And you told us about when you first became president. You were just so nervous, you just didn't want to mess up, and that you just wanted to maintain what God had used the Hortons to build here at PCC. But then you went on to tell us that the Lord really convicted you about that, and that he gave you this burden for a vision and growth of the college. And so I wanted to focus our next several questions on different aspects of growth under your presidency. And I know that one thing that has been very important to you from the very beginning is the student experience. And so I just wanted to ask you, why is that so important to you?
Yeah, so there was a time from February when Dr. Horton announced it. In May, Dr. Horton retired the day after graduation that year. And during that summer, like you said, I felt this tremendous weight of pressure. I'm going into something that I've never done before. And it's bigger, it's huge, it's more complex than anything I could have imagined. And I'm literally, when I say I couldn't sleep at night, that's the truth, because I have this anxiety building up during the summer. What if I mess up? What if I make a bad decision? What if they don't like me? What if things, what if it fails? Imagine following the founder who took it from 35 students in 1954 to thousands and multi-corporate. Just a tremendous weight. And so I'm worried about whether I'll mess up. And that's where God spoke to my heart and said, Troy, it's not about you. I've called you to this, and I'm faithful. I'll do it. And I got up early in the morning, and I would walk. My family's still asleep. And I'm like, Lord, I can't do this. I shouldn't have said yes. And he said, you're right, you can't. But I can. I can do it. And stop worrying about yourself, and stop worrying about whether you're going to mess up, because it's not about you. I've given you something of value in position to serve people. And I want you to increase and improve the value of what I've given you. It's the parable of the talents and the pounds. And it has stuck with me for 12 years. Don't ride on the history of this place. We've been celebrating legacy for this whole year. Don't ride on the history of this place. Wherever you are, however much God's given you, increase and improve the value of what God's given you. So what's our motivation for student experience? It's we were students. And then we were parents of students. And so we saw what the student experience was like. And so our motivation was to make it better than we even had. And that's what the Lord called us to do. So our motivation was a biblical motivation, I pray, that God would give us the wisdom, the capacity, the vision to improve the student. And by the way, the staff experience as well, because we served in this place for 25 years before we were in the leadership position. So that's been our motivation.
Can you share with us just a few examples of how campus life changed, specifically in regard to the student experience under your presidency?
Well, we did make a lot of changes, measured changes. We weren't going to come in and change everything about the college. There's a lot that was really good. But there was a lot that we felt like we would benefit from. The calendar was a great example of that. We take Easter and Thanksgiving off. Before, you guys don't understand this as students, but before we had classes right through. We didn't take any days off for Easter. On Thanksgiving, we took Thanksgiving Day off, but we couldn't go home. And so we were all stuck here. We knew people in this ministry that worked decades every day on Thanksgiving and never had time with family. And it was a burden to us that we need to make this place a compelling place to work, to serve for families. So we opened the calendar, Thanksgiving, Easter, for you to be able to go home, for families to be able to enjoy holidays together. Dress code changed. There are some things about dress code that shouldn't change. And those are principles: modesty, distinction, appropriateness. But when you guys were all at home, you went to school and you wore school dress. And then you came home, and you didn't stay in school dress all day long. But we used to do that as college students here. And so casual dress as a category became a reality. And we live in Florida, wearing shorts in the evenings and on weekends. So it was just more natural. I like to use the word normal than what it was before. I mean, girls, you guys used to have pantyhose all the time. And it just wasn't normal. And so those social hours, yeah. You guys have heard stories all year long about the way it used to be. Guys and girls couldn't talk after 6. And we're like, that's not normal. What happens biologically at 6 o'clock that, not allowed to talk. and so we just said, let's open up campus. And we made that, it's beautiful now. Used to be you drive on campus after 6 and it was dead. Now it thrills my heart to see you out and about and together on campus, those kind of things.
Well, I don't know if this came up in my board interview with the two of you, but I was actually socialed for talking to a guy just shortly after 6 p.m. So you really had to watch your watch.
They don't even know what social means. So.
We're very thankful for this rule change. I think you guys would all agree with me. Just to enjoy walking back to your dorm or sitting outside once it got dark.
So we'll just tell you, social meant that she couldn't talk to a guy on campus for 2 weeks. Any time of day, you weren't allowed. Those were the rules back then, so you were penalized for...
It really, really hurt the dating life, I'm just going to tell you. So, well, Dr. Shoemaker, you've not only enhanced the student experience, but you've made a lot of changes to the campus itself, campus improvements, a new building, renovations. How did you go about prioritizing what to do first?
Yeah, great question. So, you know, our first priority was taking care of faculty and staff, benefits, family-friendly atmosphere, student, your experience on campus, and then the physical, the buildings on campus. One of the things we noticed right away is that the commons was underutilized but packed at the same time. There's a picture of it there. In the old commons, the original commons, only the downstairs was used. And the upstairs was what they used to call the social hall. It was a place where you went and dated under very close observation. and it was a courtship mentality of dating that is, you know, antiquated. And so people just didn't go up there. So the whole upstairs wasn't being used and the downstairs was packed. And we're saying that students, they have the sports center, but they don't have a place to go and just hang out and socialize. And we needed basically a campus living room. So we renovated the downstairs, added the steps. Those steps that go from downstairs to upstairs didn't exist before. Added those steps, added the coffee bar upstairs, had a campus-wide contest to name it, and of course Common Grounds won. And it was a student suggestion. And so the Commons was, you know, our first one because we needed a living room. We needed a place to hang out. And then we started paying attention to where we ate. We used to eat in Varsity. And you guys have seen pictures of the circus theme in Varsity that used to exist.
Yeah, we don't know where that came from.
I don't know where that came from either. So we were happy to get rid of that. And what it needed is it needed to grow up. It needed to be adult. It needed to be mature. And so we grew that up and added the salad bar and the beautiful modern fixtures there. So those kind of things had our next priority. And then we started looking at residences. Because, I mean, the buildings by that time, Ballard and Coberly, are 40, 45 years old. We're starting to outgrow them. We're realizing you guys come to school with a whole lot more stuff than students used to come to school with. So the Lord led us to build Rice Tower. And that's where we got Rawson Lane closed. You don't know this, but Rawson Lane used to be a public road that bisected campus. And basically nothing was on the other side except a field and maintenance things. And we needed the space. So Rawson Lane was closed. Rice Tower was built. And then Griffith was totally renovated. We took down every brick off of that building right down to the bare and rebuilt Griffith the next year. So
Tell them about how the Lord went ahead with COVID.
yeah, it's a pretty neat thing. When we were growing the first, 6 or 7 years there toward filling up the capacity of our residence halls, Ballard and Coberly, we realized we had to put fewer students in those facilities. And we finished Rice Tower the year before COVID. Obviously, we never dreamed COVID would happen. But what happened was God was going ahead of us. And this is an amazing thing in his providence. He was going ahead of us and had us build that building because the next year when we all came back in 2020, we had to have a place for isolation and quarantine. And if we hadn't had the additional space that Rice provided, we wouldn't have been able to people would have had to gone home if they ever got sick. And so we were actually able to operate normal because God went ahead of us.
That's right.
Amazing thing.
I know when I was a student here, we didn't have the Palms, we didn't have Chick-fil-A.
That's right.
Papa John's, and so just so many renovations and additions. But it wasn't just the student experience, and it wasn't just the remodeling of the campus, but you also added a lot to the academic program. So maybe just to share a few things with us about how the academic program has changed since you've been president.
Well, obviously the biggest is in 2013 when the college gained institutional accreditation with the Transnational Association of Christian Colleges and Schools. So for the first time in the history of the college, we're accredited. Subsequent to that, program accreditation for the nursing and engineering programs along the way. And by the way, that's a testament to your faculty, to the academic administration, their leadership in all of the course learning outcomes and all of the self-study that goes into an accreditation process. Their competency in credential, in the degrees that they hold. That's a good thing. And then we've added programs of study, I guess more recently, things like cybersecurity and biblical counseling. You've heard me talk about that, and special education. Things that are in answer to needs we're seeing in the community, in business, in ministry. So those are all some of the academic.
And the distance learning program has changed?
Yeah, we didn't used to have any distance learning full degree programs. Now we're committed to a residential program on the undergraduate level. But on the graduate level, we now have 21 full degree programs, all online, in the graduate and seminary areas.
That's wonderful. Well, Mrs. Shoemaker, my three children are all graduates of the college under your husband's presidency, along with dozens of students from our ministry in California. And I think they all kind of resonate the same thing. They know that you and Dr. Shoemaker really care about the students. And I know the student body, in turn, loves the two of you. In fact, there's a nickname, if I can be so bold as to bring this up. There's a nickname, I've actually heard my son use it a time or two, for your husband, Papa Shoe. Could you tell us, there's a fan, can you tell us how this nickname came into being?
It started maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I'm pretty sure it started as a term of endearment, so I enjoy it. I mean, we have a huge family, right?
Right.
I've seen it on some t-shirts across the years. I've seen it on another one recently where we took some pictures.
Yeah, this one was in the election year, 2020.
Made sense in my head. Yeah.
Well, Dr.
So we love
Shoemaker,
it.
we have to know, how do you feel about this nickname?
I get asked that question occasionally. Do you mind if we call you this? I don't mind, especially if it is an affectionate term, a term of endearment. I told you we have kids who were college students. And you're not my kids, but honestly, I approach the responsibility as if you were my own. I want every good dad wants his kids to have things better than he had growing up. And I want your college experience to be better than ours. And so in that way, Papa Shoe to me is a bit of a challenge to, hey, do what's in our best interest, and if you can give us things along the way, we always like that when you give us things. Dads love to do that, but look out for our best. And so in that way, I don't mind.
I love it because I think it evokes this idea of family. So, there's a group of us that works really closely with you behind the scenes. And although we don't usually get to interact with the student body like I am today, we do share your heart and we share your vision for Pensacola Christian College. Could you take just a minute or two and explain to the student body the working dynamic of the Pensacola Christian College Board of Directors?
Sure. So the Board of Directors is something we haven't mentioned much to you, and we need to do that more. You need to understand the governance and the operation of the school. This Board of Directors are the ones who appoint me as the president, and they empower me then to carry on the day-to-day operation. So they're my boss. These are the people to whom I'm responsible directly. And I go to them for advice, for guidance, for direction, and ultimately approval on major things that impact the mission of the college. Dr. Rasmussen, you see her seated there on the front left, is chair of the board. My wife in the middle is secretary to the board of directors. She's a non-voting member, so she doesn't vote on matters because it would be a conflict of interest to have too much family influence on a board during a vote. So she doesn't vote, she just keeps the record. Dr. Rand, seated on the front row there, longtime faculty member here at the college and great friend to the ministry. In the back row, you see Pastor Redlin. So Pastor serves on the board and gives me great advice and direction in spiritual matters, in matters about just the function. He has a great pulse, finger on the pulse of a student body and faculty and staff. Next to him is Gary Gerard, a very successful businessman from Colorado. He brings wonderful insight into fiscal matters and budgeting and so forth. Past me is Dr. Stephen Maldoff, who is a missionary director, a great heart for the mission of the school. And then finally, there's Mr. Prickett. Mr. Prickett is former military and had worked here in the ministry for decades as well. So this is the team, the board, who makes final approvals on major things, who assesses my performance, and to whom I'm accountable. So when we built Rice Tower, it's the board of directors who has to approve something that big. When we added programs of study, these degree programs, the faculty and staff build them, and then we take it to the board, and the board approves any changes to the programs that we offer. Anything else that's a major missional thing, the board broadly governs, and that's the way we operate. They meet at least twice a year, and then more frequently if necessary.
And I have to say, it's truly an honor to serve with you in this capacity. A question, Dr. Shoemaker, that I'm sure you get asked often is, what do you like most about being the president of Pensacola Christian College? Of course, I went to school here in the 90s, and Dr. Horton was our president. And you know Dr. Horton a little bit. He's been in chapel. I would never call him a public speaker. I don't think he even enjoys public speaking. But one thing that I think he always enjoyed was about this time of the year, he would come to chapel and he would get up and he would announce the Presidential Prerogative Day. And, well, you know what that is. It's when the president gives the student body a day out of classes. And I really felt like that was one of his favorite things. Don't you guys agree? That's a good thing? I just have to ask you, Dr. Shoemaker, what's your favorite thing about being the president of PCC?
Well, I don't know why you're teasing students about a day off. We haven't had presidential prerogative days recently because we take those days off at Easter and Thanksgiving now. But that was a fun thing for him, and I'm sure he enjoyed that. I did come prepared, however, to share with you some other things because it is one of our greatest joys to interact in ways that are meaningful to you as students, to our faculty and staff as well. I love working with the student advisory panel, hearing advice from them, what we need to do to better serve the students. The same for, well, we have multiple other advisory panels, parent advisory, alumni, pastors. So that kind of interaction are some of my favorite things because they give me feedback on how to better serve. And then I love just dreaming about possibilities, about what God might do in the future. We have spent a whole year looking backward to the history of this place, and we need to do that. We need to remember God's blessing over time. But we're at the end of the 50th year. We're about to celebrate formally the anniversary, and then we've got another half century ahead of us if God should tarry his coming. What's next? What should look ahead? And so I've got 3 things I want to share with you today that are forward-looking, and this because these are some of my favorite. Dreaming about the possibilities for the future. Now, I've loved teasing you as well this last month about, and I've seen your memes. I know what you expect today. And what I think is really cool is that you're all wrong. Oh. I am going to come back in chapel next week and talk to you more. Tease. Hint. about next year. But I want to talk to you today about the college bigger than just some immediate changes. So the colleges have been around for 50 years. Since 1986, this has been our logo. The palm tree, the college font, and in our opinion, what better time at the end of the 50th year to rebrand and rethink, to bring this into the 21st century than now. And so I'm very pleased to introduce to you the new college logo that'll keep elements that we all appreciate, like the palm tree, but to make it a little more modern and dress it up a little. And it's a play on the old, but like most major corporations, it is just fresh and a little new. It has an homage to the waves at the beach, since Pensacola Christian College is right on the beach, and a new palm tree that does just a little more modern look. And so you'll begin to see this around as we re-image or rebrand the college in this way. It's just a way of thinking about possibilities for the future. And it begins with our identity. We're still Pensacola Christian College. We're still where God placed us. And we can have a little fresh new look. And another place that needs a fresh new look is the Four Winds. When Four Winds was built and opened in January of 2000, it was given its name, Four Winds, because, well, in the Bible, when that phrase is used, it represents people and things that came from all over the globe. So the name represents a global influence and students who are a diverse student body. So this is our existing Four Winds, and now it's 24 years old and never had a renovation. It's time to grow this up a little bit. There are a lot of primary colors. There are large walls like this that would be great feature walls. And so what we decided we would do is bring the name of Four Winds inside the building and play on the geography Well, I'll just show it to you. There are some beautiful new features, like this wall will look like this going forward. So I'm glad you like it. So big feature walls with beautiful textures, and you're starting to see the wind motif on the left wall there, the breeze, and so you get the idea. On the previous picture, you saw the beverage stations. Those will be replaced with new beverage stations like these that the service staff can go into and fill from the back, so you'll have better traffic patterns. The serving lines currently and north wall currently looks like this. So in keeping with the Four Winds theme, it'll now look like this. Wonderful textures again, painted brick there on the right, the wood slats, you see the Four Winds name, and then you're starting to see a map or cartography throughout that represents the globe, that represents the diversity of the place. And again, look at the beautiful colors, more grown up and mature environment. Alcoves currently are either red or blue walls, and the carpet is this red, white, and blue carpet. The new one will look like this. Each alcove will represent a different continent or continents, like the Americas or Asia or Antarctica or Africa. And so it will have each continent a different area, or a different area in each alcove. Serving lines right now have this bright red, again, primary colors. Grow it up and look at like this. The food will be the same, but it's sure gonna look nicer. And then on the way out, carry that map and cartography, and then throw in a little idea about PCC Eagles and a esprit de corps, and it could look like this on the way out. These are just inspiration. It's going to look beautiful. You'll enjoy seeing it when you get in the space in the fall. In fact, we'll start on this renovation as soon as you leave at post-term, as soon as graduation is over. We'll start on this, and we'll plan through the whole summer to have it completed. In fact, next week, you'll see already construction beginning on the roof. While the building is unoccupied, we need to replace the roof on that building as well. So that's the new design, and again, a look to the future. How do you like that? Pretty good? When Dr. Horton started the college in 1974, he had an idea, a thought about what college might look like. It looked like this. This was the drawing of a potential campus. It never ended up looking like that, but at least he had inspiration. He had a vision for the future. And that's a good thing to have. And God took it in a different direction, but to have a plan and to have a vision for the future is important. And it was based upon the needs of the student body at the time. Our current campus looks something like this. And we've got the main drive that goes up through the center of campus and all of the academic buildings in the core. Some of the things that we've been doing over the last several years, and in fact as part of our strategic plan, has been to have a formal campus development plan for the future. What if God takes us someday? I don't know if he will, but what if God takes us someday to, 6,000 students or 10,000 students? Where would residence halls go? Where would new academic buildings be placed? How would traffic work? Where are we all going to park? A good steward and a good leader thinks ahead toward those eventualities, because when God gives an increase, you've got to be ready for it. And so we've engaged in planning, and I've engaged a professional development team, and we've come up with a plan. It may never happen, just like Dr. Horton's plan never happened, but at least it's a vision for the future. And it could be your future if the Lord blesses. One of the biggest things that we have difficulty on campus is, well, you experienced it on Wednesday. When it rains, roads become rivers. And roads carry traffic, carry cars that we're all the time walking out in front of. So the pedestrian and vehicular interaction is high on this campus. It's my greatest safety, it's Chief Bartowski's greatest safety concern. What if while you're all walking to chapel, some car comes barreling through? And so we want to address or think about the potential of addressing that. Some of the great classic colleges and university campuses are built around a pedestrian core where cars don't interact with people and where they're kept separate and where it's a safe walking environment. So what if campus looked like this? This is a model that we have built, and it'll be available for you to go look at in the administration building after chapel. What if when you drove on Main Drive, either from the north or from Brent Lane, instead of driving through campus, there was a loop road that went around? So cars stayed on the perimeter. Service vehicles and mail was all stayed on the perimeter. And in the center, those are sidewalks. You can walk directly from the Commons to the front of the Crown Center and never cross a road. And you can get from your residence hall to any academic building and not have to cross a road. It brings a pedestrian core to the campus. Those sidewalks are huge, like, 12, 16-foot wide sidewalks. When we have Greek Rush, we can still do Greek Rush parades right up through center of campus, but cars typically won't run campus. Parking would be on the perimeter and on the backside of buildings, and in the middle, it's us. And it's what many universities call a quad, a place where you walk in a pedestrian core. Now, this plan addresses the eventuality, the possibility of additional growth. Where would more residence halls go? Where would more academic space be? So when you look at this model in the administration building, the white buildings are buildings that currently exist, and the gray buildings are dreams for the future. And so you'll see some things are missing, like the swim center and field house. If we grew, would have to move to someplace else. Maybe the whole east side of campus could become the sports complex and stadium and field house and swim center, and keep the center of campus academic and residence. So it's mind-boggling to think about, but we have a plan that could take us up to 6,000 students with surface parking lots and up to 10,000 students with parking decks on the existing property that we have. Am I praying for 10,000 students someday? No. I am praying this, and you should join me in this prayer. I'm praying, Lord, bring us the students you would have us to have, however many that is, and we'll do our best to serve them to our very best capacity. And if you give us an increase, we'll be ready for it. We've got a vision for the future. So you asked me, what are some of the things I like to do most? I love the interaction. I love dreaming about the future, praying that the Lord would give us a vision for the future. And as we look ahead at the end of our 50th year, as we look ahead to possibilities, these are the kind of things that I've been dreaming about going forward. So I hope you all enjoy that and will appreciate it.
It's truly exciting to think about. I've been affiliated with Pensacola Christian College for 35 years. As a student, as a parent, as a principal who has students here. And of course, for the past 7 years, I've got to spend a lot of time with the two of you as a board member and now as the chairman of the board of directors. And I just wanted to take a moment as we end this chapel to publicly say thank you. Thank both of you for loving the Lord Jesus Christ and for being so sensitive to his leading. And you know, I know it's taken a lot of faith to steward the ministry of Pensacola Christian College, but you've done it with excellence. And I've watched you both as you've remained loyal to what's most important, and that's the unchanging truth of the Word of God. And that's the very foundation for this college. So I wanted to say thank you, but just like the faithful servant in the parable of the talents, you've also invested and you've increased what God has entrusted to you. And I know that hasn't always been easy. A vision requires great faith and great faith in God. And so I've watched as you've humbly welcomed and even sought out input for improvement, and that you have listened and you've prayerfully considered ways to make PCC a better place, not just for the current students, but for future generations. So student body, faculty, and staff, could you join me in showing our appreciation for your president and his wife, Dr. and Mrs. Shoemaker? Just a reminder that our final Flashback Friday meal, homemade lasagna, will be served in the Four Winds immediately following chapel. And I think because we're just a little over time today, our next class period should start around 11:15. And at this time, Dr. McIntyre is going to come, and he's going to lead us in a song, Behold Our God. And this song has held special significance to Dr. and Mrs. Shoemaker throughout his presidency. And the song reflects on the goodness of God and the fact that all the glory belongs to him and to him alone. I think it's very fitting that we end our series of legacy chapels with this song. And for those of you who've joined us by way of live stream, thank you. Student body, would you please stand for our closing song?
When we reach the bridge, men, will you sing the You Will Reign Forever? Ladies, will you echo, Let Your Glory Fill the Earth? Let's sing together. Who has held the oceans in his hands? Who has numbered every grain of sand? Kings and nations tremble at his voice. All creation rises to rejoice. Behold Thank you.